Hey guys, it's Katie at scrappinkaty.ctmh.com, and I have a fun shaker layout to show you how to make and how to get your hands on one.
So for the Cherish Our Story shaker kit, or shaker page, you should have all of these pieces in your little bag. So we've got photo placeholders, we've got the title, we've got these strips of things. This particular one, if you purchase the pre-stamped kit, then this one is just going to be scraps because I've already stamped the images for you. And then you have this overlay from our Cricut collection. And then you have this piece of French vanilla, and then you have your base page. And so in essence, this is going to go like this, and then we are going to create the shaker with this Cricut overlay. And then you also should have a memory protector that I've cut down that should be a little bit smaller than this Cricut image. So let's start with the simplest steps. And the first thing you're going to want to do is adhere this French vanilla piece down onto the espresso cardstock, and you can use whatever adhesive you prefer. And then that's just going to get centered. If you need to bring in your Versamat to make sure there's a 1/4 of an inch all the way around, please feel free to do so. And then the next thing we're going to do is we need to, you know what, I'm going to turn this over so we can kind of see what's going on. We need to glue this memory protector to this Cricut overlay. Now, you may not have what I call tear tape, score tape, something like that. You may not have that, but that really is the best. If you're using our acetate, let me get one of those packages right quick. If you're using any of our shaker window foam and acetate shapes, then liquid glass is the best. Don't try to use like white liquid glue. It just doesn't work. But for a memory protector, you really need some sort of strong tape. And I'm going to be using this tear tape. There's also, I think people call it score tape. It is, it's got a red backing to it. You can purchase it anywhere, at any, what am I trying to say? Oh, at any, like Michael's, Hobby Lobby, anything like that. I do have a link for this tear tape that I get off of Amazon. I'll leave down below. It's a lot, so if you and any of your crafty friends want to share it, then that's definitely an option. That's what I do for my local girls, is I order some and then we all share it. The next thing you want to make sure is you want to cover, you don't want to leave any holes or gaps in the adhesive. You want to make sure that you cover. I'm getting as close to the edge as possible because you'll see, these little cuts from the Cricut, some of them get pretty close to that edge. And we want as much of the tape, and even the foam tape that I'm about to add, we want as little of that as possible to show through those cuts. Now you can always hide it with adding a butterfly there or something like that, but it is pretty close to the edge. So it's not like something else where you can just add an embellishment over it to kind of hide it. And so I'm on my last side of the score tape, or the tear tape, and you can see why it's called tear tape, because you just put it down and it tears so easily. Really messed that up. Okay. So I'm just going to go along the sides with my fingers and just make sure it's really adhered down. You could also use some sort of bone folder but the backing comes off a lot easier if it is really adhered down. And sometimes it's hard for the backing to come off if it's over. So let's peel that one back and then start with this one. So you're just going to go around the edge and peel all of that off. Okay, so I got all of that peeled off. You can kind of see the shininess all the way around. And then we are going to put on the memory protector. Now your memory protector might have a curve to it. Can y'all see how that's curving definitely one way? So I want to lay the curve down on top of this. Also, this tape that I'm using is extremely sticky. So you want to make sure that it is straight. So a lot of times I will keep one of the ends up so I don't have to worry about it touching. See, it's sticking to my fingers. Okay. So I got a slight bubble, but let's see if it works. And then the other thing is that once you get it adhered down, you may have to trim some edges off. As long as this memory protector is hiding all of these little cricket cuts, it doesn't matter if it goes all the way to the edge. So I'm just going to secure that down, and on this one I'm actually going to use my bone folder just to make sure it's really secured down. And then you can see right here I went a little bit over the edge, so no problem. I'm just going to trim it off. It's better to go over the edge and be able to trim it than to have bubbles in your memory protector. So here is that part that I need to trim. So I think I'm just going to pull out my paper cutter. It's going to be the easiest way to do that without trimming the actual bluebell paper. It's going to come right off. So we are good with that. As far as these pieces sticking, you can always add a glue dot afterwards. That's what I did. It makes it a whole lot easier. So then there are a couple of things that we need to do since we are working with sequins, and sequins have a lot of static. We're going to be using the bluebell sequins. We want to take an anti-static pouch, and this is the back side. So this is the side that would be touching the sequins. You just want to rub your anti-static pouch all over the back of this memory protector. You might want to rub it on your hands. The other thing that works if you don't have an anti-static pouch is just put a little bit of cornstarch. Put a little bit of cornstarch in like a clean sock or something and just rub it all over. So I'm going to do that to this base page as well. And then we are going to adhere the foam tape to this base page. Well, wouldn't you know it, I am out of... Okay, so Close to My Heart, it's really the only one that has, you know, a regular, which is 3/8 of an inch, I believe, and then this tiny 3D foam tape. The only problem is this is our thin 3D foam tape. See how thin that is versus the thick? And that's really not going to work for sequins. So if you want to use foam tape, I suggest using Close to My Heart's 3D foam tape, but not the thin. Like We have a thin and a regular, and then we have a thin in each one. We have a thin width and then a regular width. You want the regular dimension, the regular thickness, and then you want to use this thin. But I'm going to show you a way to use a whole bunch of your scraps and we can still get it done. So I have an 11.5-inch piece of White Daisy cardstock. And then you are just going to want to cut a lot of strips. I'm going to cut mine to not quite 1/4 of an inch. So there's 1/4 of an inch. So not 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to cut mine to 3/16, which is the little bitty mark right before the 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to cut a whole bunch of these. You probably need 5 stacked up on each side to get the dimension that we're going for. So I'm going to cut 5 right there, and then I'm going to cut 5 more, and those are going to be 2 of the sides, the opposite sides. And then what we'll do is we'll cut this 11.5 down just a little bit. And then that way those 2 pieces, when you meet in the corners, they won't overlap. So let me just stack 5 on top of each other right quick to see if that is the right thickness that I'm going for. I might actually want to do 3 more on each side. Okay, so I've glued all my pieces together. You can see here I've got 2 long strips and then 2 shorter strips that will go on the opposite sides. So I'm just going to lay these out right quick just to make sure just to make sure that I don't need to trim any off. So that one's good. And then our other long one is going to go on the opposite side. And then we've got some short ones. Here's the one I'm not really sure about. I cut these to 11 inches. And it looks like I've got to cut it down even more. So you may just have to eyeball that. And again, this is only if you don't have our 3D foam tape, because I have run out and I only had the thin. Now, something you could do, and I do often on little bitty things, is you can double these up. So I could have put this thin 3D foam tape and then added another layer and then kept on adding layers until I got to the desired thickness. But because I use that stuff a lot on other things, I just didn't want to waste it all on something that's not even really going to show. So that is why I decided to do the strips instead. Okay, so I think that one's going to work. Okay, so the other thing I'm thinking about doing, and all I did was I used this. This is the best liquid adhesive, in my opinion, for paper to paper. And so I just lined these up, put a thin bead across, put them on there, and that allowed me to kind of mess with them until they got straight. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere these down to this base page. And then to add even a little more thickness, I'm actually going to add my thin 3D foam tape to the top. And that's what will adhere these paper strips to the memory protector. Because remember, memory protectors, you got to kind of use special kind of glue, and I prefer the tear tape. Okay, so we've got that one down, and then now let's glue this one down. Again, this green Monotombo adhesive is my favorite for paper to paper. And what I don't want to do is I don't want it to show on the outside of this Cricut cut. So you want to make sure that you're not going over the edge of this French vanilla. I'm just going to glue this one down and then glue the top. And then we can start with the layer of 3D foam tape. And that's also going to allow, it's not going to add so much thickness to your layout that it won't fit into a memory protector or a book very easily. But what it is going to do is it's going to allow these sequins to kind of freely move around. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to cut just a little bit of this off. So it'll fit right there. Again, because I don't want it, it cannot go into this, can't go outside of this French vanilla. Otherwise, it's going to show from behind my Cricut cut overlay. Okay. So I've got those glued down, and even though this adhesive allows you to kind of finagle it to a certain point, it really is quick drying. So once it's done, it's done. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add this thin 3D foam tape. So now remember, there's a couple of terms here. When I say thin, I'm talking about the dimension. It's not very thick. And then also when I say thin, I'm talking about, here's like a normal width of 3D foam tape and here's a thin width. So there's a couple of definitions there that I hope. Okay, so I have got that thin 3D foam tape on top of the paper that I created to create a pretty nice thick border around this. So I'm really excited. So again, I just want to run this anti-static pouch over the sides and really the edges of the foam tape and my scraps, just to make sure that all the glue is kind of the stickiness is taken off. Otherwise, when we pour these Bluebell sequins, some of them like to stick to the edges. Okay, so the next thing I want to do before I dump these is I want to create some sequins that will actually stay in place. Because this is a layout, you're not going to have a lot of movement like you would a card. I mean, if it's in your album, it's not like the viewer is going to be able to shake it that much. Now, when you flip side to side, you will be able to, but not as much as you would a card. So I just want to take some of these sequins and I just want to put some glue dots. I want to keep them kind of in the middle because you remember my overlay is going to be showing. And then this piece is going to be across the middle. So I want to keep them kind of in the middle and then on the top and the bottom. So that should be enough. Let's get this little bitty guy. And I'm just using glue dots. These are our micro glue dots. So they're super tiny. And I've reached the end of that. Okay, so then now I'm just going to pour, and you can see that I even have some stars from our star confetti thin cut. Just want to get those out if I can. If you're just using regular Bluebell sequins, you don't have to worry about this. But I usually like to, if I've already cut something out of Bluebell that could serve as a shaker, I love to just add them to here. Okay, and then you want to thin them out because you don't want them stacked on top of each other, and then that kind of creates a bubble when you put the memory protector. And then sometimes I have some that are all glued together. I love that look. One day I'm going to figure out what to do with those. So then I think I just want a little bit more. Again, trying not to get the stars in there, but if I do, it's fine. Okay, and this full album retreat used almost an entire package of bluebell sequins. But, oh, so pretty. That color is just gorgeous. Okay, so I'm just going to, again, just make sure these are really spread out for right now until I get my protector on. Isn't that pretty? So shiny. Okay, so before you start peeling off the backing to that foam tape, we want to make sure how this is going to go. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that you don't see that foam tape a whole lot. So this is actually perfect. I can see it a little bit here, but nothing that I'm too worried about. And you can see where some stuck, but if I hadn't used that anti-static pouch, whoo, it would have stuck a lot. Okay, so I'm just going to peel back the backing off of this foam tape. See how easy that is? And voila. And then again, it's extremely sticky. So we want to make sure that it is stuck down. My fingernail is stuck over here. Like, I like the stickiness, but I don't like the stickiness, if that makes sense. My fingernails. Somehow it got messed up over here. So I'm going to just try to gently pull it up. If you do this perfect on the first try, it's an anomaly because there's so many working pieces in this. You have to make sure the sequins stay intact. You have to make sure that your piece is straight. You have to make sure that your 3D foam tape doesn't show. And then you just want to really press down to make sure that that is really adhered. And it is. Isn't that so pretty? So let's check out the shaking. I love how you've got these cutouts, so I love how the shaking shows. Okay, and then now for this piece. So we are going to adhere this piece down first. And I am just going to use tape adhesive. And we want that centered left to right, top to bottom. And then on our sangria piece, we need these 3 photo placeholders, and they're all going to be portrait. So there are a couple of things I do. When you have 3 pieces, what I really like to do is I like to put my left and right pieces down first. And that way I have a good even border on the left side, top and bottom. And then I'm going to do the same over here on the right. And make sure I have a real good border, top and bottom and right side. And then I like to bring in the center piece. The other way you could do it is you could do the center piece and then do the left and the right pieces. So there is that. I'm going to adhere this piece down. You can see how fast this layout comes together once you finish that shaker piece. And then we've got the Cherish semi-title. And it gets backed onto this French vanilla card, this French vanilla heart. And again, these are all Cricut cuts from one of our Cricut collections. And you only want to add adhesive to the bottom portion of this. Unless you already have your photos, then you can definitely add adhesive everywhere else. So then we've got that, and then we want to pull out the sticker sheet that came with this kit. So we want the Live Simply sticker, and it's going to go right here in between these 2 photos. And then we want the Our Story, and it's going to go right up here, right under the word Cherish. And then you are going to cut apart the butterfly pieces that you stamped or that came pre-stamped. So you've got 2 dark chipped sapphire, 1 that was 2nd generation, and then you've got 3 butterflies that are the dark, and then 2 little bitty butterflies that are the 2nd generation. So isn't that just so fabulous? Absolutely love it. I would love to hear what you think. If you liked what you saw, just leave me a comment. And as of right now, I still have 2 of these kits available. And you'll find a link down below to the walkthrough of everything that you get with the kit. When you are ready to add your journaling, remember that you did have a tiny strip of the French vanilla cardstock. That's for strip journaling, and then you will just journal and then cut in the lengths needed to fit your journaling. And then you can always cut extra if you have extra journaling.